Okay, so we're jiving straight in today with something pretty interesting.
Yeah.
As we kind of look ahead to um, a potential Trump presidency again.
Yeah.
It seems like there's already some drama bubbling up.
Uh-huh.
And specifically, we're talking about TikTok.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we're going to take a deep dive today and try to figure out what's going on.
Right.
Why is there this kind of friction within the Republican Party when it comes to Trump and TikTok?
Okay.
And we're going to look at some analysis from the Ring of Fire on YouTube to kind of break this down.
Got it.
So first off, like right out of the gate, Trump has said he's going to give TikTok this 90-day extension to find a buyer,
Right.
allowing them to keep operating.
Mhm.
And TikTok themselves seem to be pretty happy with this.
Yeah, it sounds like they feel like he saved them.
Yeah, like it was a win,
A reprieve.
a reprieve, yeah.
Yeah.
But the analysis we're looking at from the Ring of Fire, they're not buying that.
No, they are not.
They're saying, hold on a second,
They say Trump deserves zero credit for this
zero credit.
because, he was the one who really pushed for this whole ban in the first place back during his first term.
Yeah, it does feel like a little bit of
Kind of created the problem, and now he's, riding in on his horse.
taking credit for the solution.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's very interesting, and it makes you think, is this going to be a pattern?
Could be.
Create a problem, swoop in, look like the hero.
It's a good question.
But the really interesting thing here is
Yeah.
how are Republicans reacting to this?
Right.
Because it's not just, Democrats pushing back.
Right.
This is coming from inside the party.
Internal friction, which is fascinating.
Yes, and even
Yeah.
hardcore Maggie followers are not happy.
Yeah, they're expressing their displeasure pretty vocally online.
Yeah, on social media, it's all over the place. So it's
Yeah.
like, wow, this is happening very quickly.
Yeah, it is.
So you have to think what does this say about,
About the party as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah, are people just going to fall in line
Yeah, will they just go along with whatever he says?
with whatever Trump says, or is there going to be this real tension?
Yeah, and it seems like there are some pretty high-profile figures who are speaking out against it.
Yeah, and the analysis names a couple.
Yeah, like House Speaker Mike Johnson
Yeah.
and Republican Senator Tom Cotton.
Okay, so these are not,
They're not just, backbenchers. These are people with some power.
yeah, these are heavy hitters.
Exactly.
So what is their problem with this?
Well, it's not just a general disagreement.
Right.
They're saying there are legal issues here.
Okay, so let's get into the legality of this.
All right, so the analysis really focuses on Mike Johnson's perspective.
Okay.
And his argument basically comes down to this. The law does allow for a 90-day extension,
Okay.
but, and this is key,
Uh-huh.
it depends on ByteDance, that's TikTok's parent company.
Right.
It depends on them being in active negotiations to sell TikTok.
Okay.
And Johnson says they're not
So it's like you can't just grant an extension.
not just because you feel like it.
Yeah, it has to be.
There are conditions.
There has to be movement.
Exactly. There has to be actual progress towards a sale.
Got it.
And Johnson says right now that's just not happening.
Interesting.
So his argument is basically
Oh.
Trump doesn't have the authority to do this.
So it's not a question of whether or not a 90-day extension is good or bad.
No.
It's a question of,
It's about whether he can even legally do it.
can he even do it?
Right.
Wow.
It's a procedural issue.
That's a really important point.
Yeah, and it really suggests that, some Republicans are really willing to stand up.
Yeah, to stand on principle.
Yeah, and say, look, we don't agree with this and we think it's actually illegal.
Even if it means going against Trump.
That's the interesting part, yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So the analysis also gets into the speaker's personal opinion on banning TikTok.
Right.
And they don't hold back. They call it stupid.
Yeah.
Built on lies.
Yeah. They're pretty clear that they think this whole thing is ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's probably not a very popular opinion within the Republican Party.
No, I don't think so.
Especially because they're saying
Yeah.
that the whole data theft argument
Right. The national security concern.
just doesn't hold water.
Yeah. They say there's no real evidence to support that.
They even bring up this article
By Ken Klippenstein? Yeah.
that supposedly says that even the military
Yeah.
admitted they didn't have proof.
Right. So they're really pushing back on that whole narrative.
So this is another perspective,
Absolutely.
for you listening out there.
It's important to hear these different sides.
Yeah, it's not just about national security, some people are saying.
Yeah. They see it as something else entirely.
Yeah.
A different issue.
And then there's Trump's solution,
Oh, yeah. His big idea.
which the analysis is pretty skeptical of.
They're not buying it at all.
They're talking about the U.S. government
Yeah.
potentially owning 50% of TikTok.
Right, a government stake in a social media company?
Yeah.
Pretty unusual idea.
Yeah, and they even go so far as to call it
Some socialism.
some socialism.
Yeah. Not exactly a term you usually hear from that side of the aisle.
Yeah, so it's like, what's going on here?
It's a head-scratcher for sure.
Yeah, is it really about national security?
Yeah, or is there something else going on?
Or is this just kind of
Power play.
a weird, strained power play?
Who knows?
Yeah, and then the analysis shifts gears a little bit
It does?
to another policy area where Trump's planning some big changes,
AI?
AI.
Yeah, artificial intelligence.
And this is another area where it seems like,
He wants to undo a lot of what Biden did,
yeah, dismantle the safeguards.
which Trump apparently calls, get this, radical leftist roadblocks to innovation.
Yeah, pretty loaded language.
It is. It really frames the issue in a very specific way.
So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, some people are going to say,
Yeah.
this is about freedom for technology.
Unleashing the power of innovation.
Yeah, let it rip.
But then you have the other side saying, hold on a second. Fewer rules means more spyware.
More manipulation.
Human rights violations.
Yeah, so it's this classic debate.
Regulation versus deregulation.
Right, but applied to this really complex, rapidly changing world of AI.
Exactly. And the stakes are incredibly high.
And the analysis mentions that Elon Musk might be in Trump's ear about this.
Yeah, which is interesting because Musk has some very strong opinions about AI.
And he has a lot of influence.
Yeah, so that could definitely shape things.
And they also make this point about
Yeah,
it's getting harder and harder to tell what's true,
truth versus opinion versus propaganda.
especially with AI getting so sophisticated.
Yeah, and the potential for deep fakes and all that.
It's scary.
It really is. It's a whole new world of information warfare.
It all feels very interconnected.
It does, doesn't it?
TikTok, AI policy.
Yeah.
It's all about technology regulation.
Controlling the flow of information.
And national security in this digital age,
It's a huge challenge.
it is. So these early disagreements and policy changes,
Yeah.
they could really shape things in a big way.
They could set the tone for the next 4 years.
Exactly.
And maybe even beyond.
And in this whole context of like competing narratives,
Yeah.
the analysis mentions ground news.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
As a way to see different perspectives on the news.
Yeah, like a tool to cut through the spin.
Yeah, because it's really hard to know what to believe these days.
Especially with something as complex as this.
Absolutely.
So to sum it all up,
Okay.
we're seeing this real division within the Republican Party
Yeah.
over Trump's handling of TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like a minor policy quibble.
Right.
It seems deeper than that.
It's fundamental
It's like they disagree on
the law itself
the law.
and on TikTok itself.
Yeah, whether it's even a problem.
Exactly.
And then you add in this whole AI thing.
Right, that's another layer entirely.
It's like,
Oh,
wow, this is a lot to unpack.
it is.
And it's all happening before he's even officially back in office.
Yeah, it's a preview of things to come.
So for you listening out there, think about this.
Yeah.
What do these early disagreements, these clashes over TikTok and AI,
Yeah.
what do they tell us about the next 4 years?
Good question.
Will the Republican Party stay united?
Will they be able to govern effectively?
Yeah. And how are they going to approach technology regulation?
There's a whole new world out there.
It is. And the way they handle these issues could have a huge impact.
On all of us for years to come.
So stay tuned, because this is just the beginning.
Yeah, we'll be here to help you make sense of it all.
We'll be keeping a close eye on these developments
Absolutely.
as things continue to unfold.
That's what we do.
That's what we do.
Deep dive
Deep dive
into the chaos.
into the chaos.
Into the chaos.
That is the future.
That is the future. And we'll see you next time.
See you then.